We live? We're live. Hello, folks. It's Colby Evans, and welcome to another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. Sorry it's a little later than usual. Of course, I've been having some issues with my computer, but hopefully this will work today and we can get it running up. So there's been a lot of news in the ARCA Racing Series lately. We had the first race of the East Series at New Smyrna Speedway, which I was able to attend, and the ARCA race at Daytona, which also able to attend as well. I'll give you guys my thoughts on the race. Some people were highly negative on it. I was actually thoroughly entertained because I find the best things about ARCA races that some people don't. So, of course, I'm trying to get this going every Wednesday night, trying to go head-to-head with the NASCAR guys, but unfortunately, I just don't have quite all the technology that they do, and just trying to make it here by myself, man. It's not easy. Also, I actually run the Start and Park account on Twitter if you guys want to go follow me there for any Start and Park stuff. If you guys are interested in the blank cars that run 3 laps and pull out because of that stupid vibration, I'm the guy. I'll leave a link to that in the description if you guys want to go follow. Again, your choice, but I'd appreciate it. So again, recent storylines, let's just get right into it. The Jeep Beach 175 at New Smyrna Speedway. I was there in person. I was thoroughly entertained. I thought it was a great race. New Smyrna Speedway is an amazing short track. The one thing, though, that kind of killed this race was just a low car count. Last year, we had over 20 cars. I think if I'm correct, we had 23 cars show up last year with at least maybe 10 to 15 that had a legitimate chance at competing for the win. Fortunately, this year, we only had about 16 on the entry list. And then, sadly, 15 when Chuck Buchanan Jr. Crashed during qualifying and pretty much totaled his Chevrolet, which actually is a sad story because the story with Chuck Buchanan Jr. is they were actually planning on using that same car that he crashed at New Smyrna in the race at Daytona just the very later that week. So kind of a sad story for an underdog who I respect because I've seen them around for a long time. But as I said before, low car count, and I posted something on Twitter yesterday. I posted the ARCA purse for New Smyrna, and it blew up. Surprise to me, it blew up. Never would have expected that. And although I love this series so much, I want to call them out because that's just unacceptable. The problem is that in today's world, we rely on paid drivers and sponsorship so much that literally the purses is just a bonus. But that's the reason why we have low car counts. Last place in that Jeep Beach 175 paid, let's take a look at the entry blank here, $1,175 to last place. And that's for 15. Poor Andy Hillenberg ran 2 cars. Dick Doney was a Start and Park, and then, of course, his newcomer, Richard Garvey. 2 cars, didn't even make $3,000 out of it. A set of tires alone is over $2,000. Again, it is what it is, but ARCA needs to improve this, or eventually we will not have an East or West series, and we'll barely have a main series. But I love this series with all my heart. And I really hope that in some way, shape, or form, we can continue this. The huge gripe that came out of that Jeep Beach 175 was the crappy officiating. And I really wish I could say another word, but I can't. I was there in person, and wow. So apparently, they didn't get the memo of how the ARCA pit stop rules work. The way the pit stop ARCA rules work, you bring everyone down, lap cars included. Everyone stops in their box. And then right as everyone stops in their box, ARCA officials do this signal, and all the pit crews come over for 5 minutes, and you can make any adjustments, change tires, fuel, anything. I've been a part of it, so I know exactly what it is. So surprising to me, when they came down and only had about half the cars stopped in their boxes and cars continued to circulate. It was really quite confusing. Especially afterwards when the guy who came in third, Sammy Smith, came out first, and the guy who led early in the race, Parker Retzlaff, came out 1 lap down. It was all confusing. And then the weirdest part of the race was when the 18 was leading. It was about 6 laps to go, and they threw a bogus debris caution for rubber. Everybody in the stands knew it was bogus, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. We all have been there before with the debris cautions. And then the funniest part of all, 1 to go, and it rains. And my dad and I are just sitting there in the humidity and praying to get this race going. And then they get on the track, and then what? The 18 is not the leader. Apparently, they took 4 tires when they were only allowed to take 2. Apparently, I guess the ARCA East has different pit rules. I didn't know that. And they took 4 tires when they should have only taken 2. So they were put to the back of the lead lap, I think, or I'm not sure completely. But the 74 car of Mason Diaz did the exact same thing, and they did nothing about it. So it was quite confusing how they penalized one car for that penalty, but there's another car who did the same thing never got penalized. Although the 74 kind of did get its comeuppance a little later when the track clearly wasn't ready to be raced on, but they wanted to get the race over with. They ran into turn 1, 74 spun right out. And then the funny part was, if you guys have watched the race yet, the 74 actually got behind the pace car, and they claimed that they were the leader because of track preparation. And this was all in a case of just 5 laps. It was a complete mess. So I'm like, let's just get this race over with. I want to go home. It's 10:30. 10:30 Daytona time. I just want to go home or go back to the hotel. And boy, did they make up for it. In short track racing, you got to know that they're going to move each other. And we knew it was coming. No, Sammy was actually moved back to second. Taylor Gray was leading. Yep. And I saw it coming a mile away. Goes into turn 3. Boom. Washes up the track. And then here comes young Max Gutierrez. 3 wide finish. Gutierrez wins. Amazing. The crowd and I were losing our, you know what I mean. We were ecstatic. We were so happy. And then the funniest part was, half the crowd didn't even know who he was. So that was the best part too. But I've seen Max before. He's a good kid. I think he's quite talented, and he's got a good shot at the East Championship this year. But yeah, it was a mess, but it was great. It was a mess, and it was great. But at the end of the day, the low car count and crappy officiating is pretty much will probably be remembered for that race. Although I still had a good time. Especially funny being able to still cover the starting parks again. We only had 1. But ARCA East, not off to the best start, but at least we had a good winner for the first race. And yeah, I think the Durabite 30 car will shock a lot of people this season in the East Division. I'll also put a link down to Gutierrez's Twitter in the description if you guys want to go follow him. He's a really good kid. Really is. Well, as you're moving on, got my note sheet right down here. So the main story is the Lucas Oil 200, the biggest ARCA race of the season across all 3 divisions. The big one at Daytona. And there was actually quite a few storylines going into it. I'm going to go ahead and get the purse sheet up here and then get the results up here so that way we can talk about them. So bear with me for a second if it looks like I'm spacing off. All right, there we are. So, again, I just mentioned before, the new Smyrna ARCA East race paid $5,000 to win and $1,175 for last place. Now, the main ARCA race at Daytona is a little better, but it's still not good. As first place, it's just $17,500. That still is not enough to make a profit. It's an okay payout for ARCA, but unless you have major sponsorship, no, you lose money. And if anything, for more of the low-budget teams, it's the love and the will of being at Daytona. which I fully respect. I fully respect the will to go to Daytona. Even if you know you may lose money, it's Daytona. I'd do the same thing if I had an ARCA car. If I had an ARCA car, but I knew I didn't have enough money to make a profit, I'd still go anyway. Why not? Why not? So, and we actually had, and the good part is, we had more cars on the entry list than last year. We had 35 cars on the entry list. Unfortunately, I told you guys the story about Chuck Buchanan Jr. and him having to withdraw. And then one of my good friends in ARCA, a guy who I've worked for a couple of times, nobody was noticing Brad Smith on the entry list. And unfortunately, it was then posted to his Twitter account that he suffered an eye injury and could not participate in Daytona. Brad, if you ever watch this, wishing you the best of luck, buddy. Can't wait to work with you again. So it was a sad state not seeing the red 48 out there with Brad Smith. Although the 48 was still entered. Fast Track Racing Andy Hillenberg entered in another car for Brad with Owen Smith. No relation, ironically. But they entered in the 48 car still to help Brad get some owner points to start the season. And that's why I respect Andy Hillenberg. And that's why I respect the backmarker independents in ARCA way more than the higher-ups. I still respect every ARCA team. But I've been in that garage area and I know who works harder. So with the 87 having to withdraw, that still left us with a strong 34 cars, which we only had 33 last year, but still in reality, when it comes to Daytona for ARCA, 34 cars with only legitimately about 15, maybe even 20 that could win the race. Because at the end of the day, you still got the stragglers like the 06 car, the legacy engine car, which can only pull about 170. And then other slow cars that can only pull about 170, 175 in the draft, and just have a tough time keeping up. I'll get into the package and the Ty Gibbs situation at the end because I'll just talk about it later in the show. It's good to see a strong site, and then 34 cars, like I said, and then the best surprise of the whole week, the pizza delivery, man. Shock in the world. Bear with me if I botch the name. Andy Jankowicz. I probably butchered that so bad. Everyone's been butchering it. And I'm sorry, Andy, if I did. But holy crap, man. You were the MVP of this weekend. This was an old Schrader car, if I'm correct. And boy, was it a good car. He drafted and practiced great. Ran great in practice. Ran great in qualifying. And ran a very strong top 10 finish in the results. MVP of the whole weekend. Everybody was like, who is this guy? And the best part I was so happy is Andy's car is in one piece, and I hope he can race again, hopefully at Talladega. I'd really love to meet the guy and maybe even get him on the show sometime. But it's always good to see the underdog story come out of Daytona. It always is. And it's great to see that Andy was this year's great underdog story. Just wish he could have gotten a better payout, but the good part was there was multiple sponsors on that car, and I'm just happy that we saw a true independent pizza delivery, man. People, go out and support this guy. Run top 10 at Daytona. It doesn't get any better than that. And then, of course, another reason why I love ARCA at Daytona, oldest guy in the field, Benny Chastain at 78 years old. Youngest guy in the field, Ty Gibbs at 18. That's why I love ARCA. 60-year age gap between the drivers in the field. Great. And for Benny fans, Benny ran 20th in the Dawson Cram car. The Cram Racing Enterprises car, which was supposed to be run by Chris Hacker. Unfortunately, Chris Hacker had symptoms of COVID-19 and could not participate. So they got the old gun and Benny Chastain. And I tell you guys, I was there in the stands. Old Benny, he was making moves out there. He was passing cars because the Cram Toyota was actually a really fast car. Like he could by himself run him down and pass him on the outside. Now, unfortunately, some people found that ARCA race pretty boring. I I actually did not. I was thoroughly entertained. I'll get to the finish in a second, but I was thoroughly entertained by the race. I thought it was a good little wreck. We had some good side-by-side racing. And what I find more entertaining about the ARCA races is watching the stragglers go around and around. That's what I find entertaining. Like, every time the 06 would come by, we'd be like, yeah, go, go, go. It's great, because I love Wade Peterson. Every time the 06 would come by, we would cheer our asses off. It was just great. Oh, I'm just laughing about it because it was so much fun. I really wish, if you guys could see my side of the ARCA races, you would realize why I have so much fun and why I still support this series so much. Unfortunately, one of the biggest stories going into the ARCA race didn't even last that long. Brittany Zamora and Reddit Motorsports were running a very somewhat controversial chassis. Sterling Marlin's old silver bullet chassis that he ran in the super speedway races from, I believe it was 1999 to 2005 is what NASCAR Man said. I hope I'm correct there, and if I'm not, I'm definitely in the range. But that chassis was involved in the wreck with Dale, so that caused quite a bit of controversy. And I got to tell you, I think that's quite special for Brittany to run. And the car looked great. It was a really nice blue. It really stood out. But for some reason, there was something wrong with the ductwork. I could never figure out what was wrong with the car. Then, unfortunately, she went to the garage and never came back out. And it was quite disappointing losing a competitive car that probably had a shot at the win within the first 10 laps. That was actually quite a shame. And then, of course, I was kind of happy we didn't have many wrecks because in ARCA, the payouts are not the best, and that sometimes these teams can't fix the cars. Because, like in the ARCA race, we only had 6 cars, I think, retired due to crash damage, and all of them can be pretty much replaced. The 30 team has enough money to replace their cars. So does Greg Van El. So does Kimmel, Venerini, and who else was involved? Sanchez for Rev Racing. All those teams can afford to repair and replace those cars. But teams like Andy, if Andy had been involved in a big wreck, probably more than likely wouldn't have had enough money to repair the car. Sadly, just because of the payouts. But the good news is that what I was hoping is that if we have cars that can be repaired and a lot of the back markers who can't afford to keep them in one piece, we will have a strong field for Talladega and not have the 21 car crap fest that we did last year. Now we can get maybe at least 30 and have a somewhat interesting race. Because I watched that race last year like everyone else. It was just sad. But yeah, people, it's not that bad. Don't listen to those people who tell you, screw ARCA, ARCA's boring. It's not. ARCA just needs to go to where they know they have good races. If you recall correctly last year, the best ARCA race, I would argue that one of the best ARCA races of the season had the lowest car count. 14 cars at Lebanon I-44 Speedway. 14 cars with 3 starting parks, and it was without a doubt the best race of the season because the competitive cars were beating the crap out of each other. ARCA can still go on short fields. It just needs to go to the right tracks is the problem. With the car counts that they're unfortunately getting, ARCA can go to Daytona and Talladega, but then that's it. After Daytona and Talladega, the biggest track that ARCA should go to is Iowa. And then they should be going to everything smaller and below. And I wish I-44 was on the schedule again because that was the best race of the season. It was. So that's just kind of my gripe there, but that's for a later time. Here is where the ARCA race went to crap, and this is where I can understand a lot of frustration. The package doesn't warrant good suck-ups. Unlike the Cup package where you can get one heck of a run. Not really in ARCA. Not really in ARCA. And they threw Scott Reeves had crashed his only car. I really hope, Scott, number one, if you're watching, you're okay. I hope your car is okay. Scott Reeves hit the wall very, very hard coming up a 4, and the car is totaled, unfortunately, which is a shame because Scott's one of those independents who he's got to pay for everything. You know, he had no sponsorship on the side, so hoping, Scott, you can get that car repaired for next year because, man, we need you in the series. You're an independent that I highly respect. But it's set up a classic one-lap ARCA finish. Now, some people don't actually remember, ARCA only does one-lap finishes. They don't do green-white checkers. They will only do a green-white checkered if it goes to the scheduled ending distance. If it goes anything past that, then they will just do one-lap shootouts. Everybody remembers the 2018 Craps Fest when they wrecked about 30 cars just trying to finish one lap. So they had one attempt at a one-lap finish. I want to say I knew it was coming, but I was hoping for something better. They got to turn 2, and the 15 was pushing the crap out of his teammate. And then it's just as if it was team orders. The 20, boom, way out ahead. 15 in second place. Boring-ass finish. Excuse my language there, but I don't want to accuse them of team orders. But if anyone can go back and watch the Talladega race, you will watch the same thing. If you go back and watch the Talladega race last year, I believe it was on the last lap. Drew Dollar had made that move on Riley Herbst. Drew had about a 1-second lead over the 2 cars of Brett Holmes and Corey Heim. They got hooked together. Brett was pushing him down the back straightaway. And instead of making a move, Corey just went in behind Drew. And I called that out for team orders last year. And it actually did get quite some attention. And honestly, I feel like I saw the same exact thing. That 15 car had a lot of damage. It was there to help the 20 win. That's just what I saw. I could be wrong, but if that's the case, ARCA's got to fix that. But at the end of the day, this is a business. Dang, my phone is over here blowing up with dumb messages. But I hope it really wasn't team orders because it ruins these ARCA races. I mean, and props to ARCA. I still love Bill and Billy Venerini. I've met them at the track before. Great guys. They love my red hair. But it just ruins these ARCA finishes. But at the end of the day, it's all a business, and they can do what they want. So props to Venerini for getting that win. Good for Corey Heim. I think he can have a real shot at the championship this year. I think despite the low championship contenders, the battle between Sanchez, Gibbs, and Heim will be a hell of a battle. I really do think it will be. If I'm correct, the full-time drivers for ARCA in this season, Ty Gibbs, Nick Sanchez, Corey Heim, Richard Garvey for Andy. I think I'm missing someone, but if I'm missing someone, please correct me in the comments. But that's not much, but still a quite competitive. Those 2 guys will put on a heck of a show being in the 2 top Toyota teams. And then here came the controversial part of the race. Ty Gibbs' comments after the race. Now, Ty Gibbs just won the Xfinity race at the Daytona Road Course. Very impressive. I still don't like Ty Gibbs personally, but I'm not going to say he's not a heck of a road course driver and a heck of a race car driver in general. I do have more respect for him, but man, I tell you, it really hurt me when he embarrassed the series like that and called them out. In some ways, I understand it because the ARCA Super Speedway package does need help. These composite body ARCA cars, ever since 2018, have not made for good ARCA racing. Really haven't. These cars are not made for the high banks. The steel body Gen 4s were the cars that were made for the high banks. Everybody knows that. And he called them out. Here, let me go ahead and pull up the transcript. I believe I got it. Shout out to frontstretch.com for pulling up this transcript. Just get a second to speak up. So I'm going to shout out FrontStretch.com's article on Ty Gibbs speaks about the lackluster Daytona finish, which in a way I agree with him. I kind of agreed with him on the first part of it. The 15 of Drew Dollar, even though he won Talladega, it's Daytona. You're openly giving up a chance to win Daytona to help your teammate. Why are you even here? Is what Ty Gibbs said. Why are you even here? That I can agree with. But then just like Kyle Busch and not calling Daytona a real racetrack and then telling iRacing, personally for me, I think iRacing is boring. It's a simulator. It's not real racing. That's my opinion. You guys can disagree on that, and that's fine. Everyone can agree to disagree on everything. I find iRacing boring. That's why I don't have a sim rig. I'm probably the only person in racing right now who loves this sport who doesn't actually have a sim rig or does any sim racing whatsoever. I've tried it a couple of times, and it's fun. But I'd rather do the real thing. Like, honestly, I'd rather drive a start and park in an actual ARCA race than win a simulator race. Because in the start and park, I'm getting more experience. That's my personal opinion. So Ty Gibbs basically saying that Daytona ain't a real racetrack and telling you he's going to go in iRacing because it's much more fun and criticizing the package. It hurt. And he put out a public apology later in the race. But that was just because he had to. But he made a good point. In ARCA, I've always heard the same thing. You're not really allowed to log bumpers. And you couldn't really get to the bumper, but all of a sudden they got to the bumpers and they locked together. If you watch that finish, the 15 and the 25, or 15 and the 20, they were together until it's as if the 15 just let off. Yeah, and even Brett Holmes said somewhat of the same thing, and I'm a huge Brett Holmes fan. But at the end of the day, Ty could have worded his comments maybe just a little better to not get so much hate. But a lot of people call out the ARCA package. I know they need to work on it, but you don't need to call out one of my favorite series like that. That was kind of wrong. And then, of course, you know, I could get into Ty Gibbs, but I've just seen him at the racetrack. He's a good kid. I've met him a couple of times. He's a good kid, but I'm just worried he's going to become one of these 18-year-old smartasses, if you know what I mean. No disrespect. No disrespect whatsoever. But it's just kind of what I've seen out of these young kids, especially in the ARCA garage that I've been able to meet up close. Good kids. Really good kids. Some of them with a lot of talent, like Ty Gibbs. A lot of talent. But sometimes you got to keep your mouth in better places, if you know what I mean. One car who had a trouble of some race, and honestly, felt like it was in, just like kind of like Derek Kraus was. Poor Thad Moffitt, man. He was like involved in everything. Trotting around there with all that damage. Thad, he's a good driver, but compared to his DGR teammates, I wish he could run full time because I'd like to see what he could do at every track. But so far, I've just not really been that impressed. It's cool to see the 46 and the Petty font, but I really want to expect to see more out of him this season than I saw last year. If you didn't know about Thad Moffitt, he's scheduled to run about 11 events this year in the 46 car. So I'm interested to see what he does at Phoenix, hopefully. That's where I'm going to really be testing him. And like I said before about the ARCA package, then the cars not being torn up, I want a decent field for Talladega because if you guys didn't know, I'm going to Talladega. I plan on hopefully working the ARCA race. I'm not going to release any details right now. But I just wanted to let you guys know, really support this series, man. This series is definitely not on the best terms right now, but I love this series with all my heart. I'm a huge ARCA fan. And But we do have another ARCA East race coming up, actually. Close these Daytona tabs, and let's get into the Pensacola entry list in purse. And it's actually what I posted last night was the Pensacola purse. That first place was only $5,000, and that 15th place with 15 cars entered was only $1,100. I was shocked at how much that blew up. It got attraction from NASCAR men, NASCAR drivers, and even a lot of higher up people in the sport. It was no meant to be hate. It was just me posting it for the sake of posting it. And I just want to bring attention to how crap this is and how I have been very vocal. The NASCAR series had a $300,000 sponsorship from Coca-Cola. I have been very vocal about that and how I really wish that Coca-Cola would have put that money into ARCA. Because if you put that $300K into ARCA and mix in the new sponsorship from Reese's that ARCA's been getting, maybe that can allow the pay-ups to go a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, I understand why Coca-Cola can see more exposure in the NASCAR series in ARCA. But it bothers me that Coca-Cola would be putting that much money into a simulator series than a real racing league like ARCA. It does bother me. And it's something that really only I complain about. But again, that's why it's great that everyone can have their own opinions. But I honestly wish that we could Coca-Cola would put that money into our actual racing. There, I said it. Anyway, ARCA East is really struggling this year. We have 15 cars again for the Pensacola race. Kind of surprising. No Jack Wood. Jack Wood was running ARCA East and was supposed to run the full ARCA East season along with select main ARCA races and main West races. So no GMS car. I wonder, is it possible that there's funding issues, or could it just be maybe a late entry? But I really hope this doesn't mean we won't see the GMS car. Because Jack finished a strong, I think, top 10 Daytona? I think so. And then unfortunately crashed in the ARCA East race at New Smyrna. But, yeah, 15 cars again. A lot of field fillers in there as well. We got about 10 really competitive cars. Andy will have 3 cars, so that'll be good to see again. Right now, the starting parks that I can list, the 10 of Dick Doney, the 48 of Brad Smith, and the 06, yes, the 06 of Wayne Peterson. For the people that did not know, Tim Richmond, still affiliated with Peterson in some way, but Tim Richmond and David Richmond, his father, have branched out and merged with fellow ARCA driver Alex Clubb to form Richmond Club Motorsports. They together fielded the 27 at Daytona, and they will split that car, I believe, this season. Richmond doing the majority of the races, and Alex, I believe, Richmond doing 12, Alex doing 8. Now for Wayne, they're still working, I think, somewhat together. I think so. I'm not for sure. But Wayne, if you guys still remember, has the legacy car. Wayne still has his own composite. And pretty much it's just going to be Wayne doing it himself again. And, yeah, he's going to be the driver this weekend. Still going, pushing 83. It's great. And I wish you guys could meet Wayne Peterson. I could go on and on about how much I love him and how much he's taught me. ARCA, man, you guys got to watch. You guys got to follow it more. If you really did, you'd see why so many people still love the series, like me and a lot of other of my friends on Twitter. But yeah, we got the field fillers of Wayne Peterson, Brad Smith, and Dick Doney. 12 cars that will, 12 cars that looks like they're going to be running the full race. Andy, like I said, has got 3 cars here. Richard Garvey, which will be a full race entry. And then, of course, the 12 of Stephanie Moyer. Hopefully I said that name correctly. Zachary Tinkle, a guy who's been running the 53 late model, I want to say, will be able to get his debut in ARCA driving for Brandon Oakley's team, I believe, 22 car. Yeah, Brandon Oakley's team. But despite the low car counts, you still got a competitive field of cars that can still put on a good show at the small short track. And I think this is the advantage that ARCA can have. Yes, the fields are small, but if you go to a track where the fields don't really matter, you can still put on a great show. And I think that'll be the case with this Pensacola race. And I think that was also the case for New Smyrna. That even though the car count was a little low, it still put on a great race, in my opinion. But as for my predictions, I think Sammy Smith and the Joe Gibbs car is going to take it. Sorry, guys. I think with no GMS car to contend with, I think it's going to be Sammy's to lose. The Engine Ice car is a really cool looking car. That blue and white mixed with the matte black. Wow, what a good looking race car. I really wish Lionel would produce some of these ARCA cars. And even then, they don't have to produce many, like make 100 of them. You know, just make 100. They'd sell pretty quickly. I'd buy it. I'm sure a lot of other people would too who love ARCA. But then, like I said, going back to the entry blank is what I posted and really blew up. A set of tires alone, if I'm correct, is $2,400, $2,200, and that payout is the same as second place. Just goes to show that, you know, sponsorships and pay drivers is really what ARCA is. And I love it. I will always love it. But at the end of the day, we all know it's an issue. Hopefully something will change, but likelihood is it just won't. Again, it was not meant to be hate. It was simply just to say we need to get more sponsors to help these payouts go up. And then it's not like they haven't been like this for a long time. Even before ARCA took over the K&N Racing Series, the K&N payouts were exactly the same. If you guys, stretching at my knee here, if you guys actually go out to when they used to show payouts for even the K&N Series, you guys will see it's exactly the same. Literally is exactly the same payouts. And it's been going on for a long time. It's just, it hasn't been shown on mainstream media. Therefore, nobody has really taken a look at it like I have. And like maybe some other people have. But I will continue, as long as ARCA continues to put the entry blanks on their competitor site, I will continue to post them and show you guys just how much sponsorship is dependent in ARCA. But it's no disrespect to a series that I've loved so much. I think since 2009, I've been a huge ARCA follower. And well, that pretty much like wraps it up. I really enjoyed going live this time because I wanted to see how it would go. Thank you guys for enjoying the show. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I'm hoping that maybe next episode I can finally get my first guest. I have a couple of people that I've already talked to. And I'm hoping that maybe we can also get some members of ARCA and past ARCA on the show as well. So that way we can all talk ARCA, 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 ARCA. Yeah, ARCA! Again, shout out to the sponsors of ARCA: General Tire, Reese's, Menards, Bounty, Hearst Potato Chips, Sioux Chief, all those great sponsors that continue to support this legendary series. Thank you to you. Thank you to you guys. Unfortunately, we don't have any sponsors for the show yet, but that's fine. Anyway, you guys take care now. Again, hopefully you guys love the show. Like, subscribe. We'll go head to head with the NASCAR guys sooner or later. And yeah, remember to eat Hearst potato chips. Take care.